Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Misha Syafridan Fatma. As a Master of Ceremony, welcome to International Environomic and Social Talk, IEST 2022, with the theme Agroforestry Hopes for the Future, or Forestry and Sustainable Forest Development. Okay, before we're starting to the next agenda, let me read the rules today's event. Please listen carefully. 1. Change the display name on Zoom with format country underscore institution underscore name. 2. Activate the camera feature during the event and deactivate the microphone when not needed. 3. Using virtual background. And 4. Wear casual and folded clothes. 5. Chill out, enjoy the event. Okay, for the next agenda is singing the national anthem of Indonesia, the hymn of IPB and Mars Rimbawan. To the operator, please play the song. Okay, thank you for the operators. Before we next to the next agenda, please welcome to Head of Department Silviculture, Mr. Omo, and welcome to Student Commission of Forest Management, Engineer Sanitation, and okay, next agenda is reading from the Peace Executive of IEST 2022, Fran Indah Prawansyah. To Mr. Fran, the time is yours. Okay, the next agenda is department introduction video. To the operator, please play the video.
Welcome to the Bachelor of Science degree program in Forest Management at IPB University. Located in Bogor, West Java and about 62 kilometers from Jakarta, where much forestry home-based research is taking place, the program provides many opportunities for students.
The Bachelor of Science degree program in Forest Management has been offered since 1999, which previously was one of the 3 specialization subjects of Bachelor of Science in Forestry that has been offered since IPB University was established in 1963. It's the oldest forestry degree program in Indonesia.
It's a pride I can be a student of this program. I heard from my teacher in senior high school that it's the best campus for study forestry in Indonesia. And yes, that's true. The study programs supports our academic and non-academic life on the campus.
The program is always accredited excellently or A grade by Indonesian National Accreditation Board for Higher Education. The academic staff consists of 32 people who graduated from reputable international universities, which are supported by 16 people of the administration staff. In the curricula, the program collaborates theory and practice.
We learn and apply knowledge towards sustainable forest management. I think the program provides
comprehensive laboratories. You can study mapping, a geographic information system, operate unmanned aerial vehicles in a remote sensing laboratory. My friends and I practice forest inventory with traditional and modern, enhance our practice skills in forestry field practice to invent forests in the various ecosystem. We also study and practice forest hydrology and watershed management.
We study forest operation and forest harvesting, both for timber and non-timber forest products. It is so exciting to explore the timber harvest tools, study and practice in resin harvest, and explore 4.0 technologies in forest utilization, as well as studying its impacts on the environment. We always use personal so that I'm able to practice in the forest.
We study about social, economic, and policy in forestry. It is so fun when we discuss forestry and forestry textbooks in our lab. The program often invites the guests from various actors to give the lecture. In forestry field practice and thematic fieldwork lecture, we also come to the village and live together with the local people to practice related to forest socio-economic in forestry and internship in various forestry institutions.
In order to support the practice, the study program facilitates the Arboretum, Sikabayan Campus Forest Park and Gunung Balat University Forest. Gunung Balat University Forest is one of the best education forests in Indonesia, with a total area of 359 hectares, managed by the Faculty of Forestry and Environment of IPB University since 1968.
Our study is supported with comfortable classes and many facilities for gathering and discussion. We have several rooms. It's special for students for discussion and studying together. Some of my friends prefer to use gazebo and outdoor facilities. Personally, I like to discuss and refresh in the cafeteria. The library also a good place for self-study. We have an organization called Forest Management Student Club. We do routine program like expedition in the forest, join national forestry exhibition, held national seminar, fund gathering, and visiting forestry stakeholders' offices. We also have opportunities to intern in various forestry stakeholders, like in government offices, NGO, and forest company. We're lucky the program support our activities in sport and art. Every year, we join sport and art championship in university. They also enhance our soft skill, leadership, and entrepreneurship by various training and activities.
Department of Forest Management as a home base has obtained certificate of quality management system requirements, especially for academic administration and learning process. I think IPB Mobile for students, lecturers, staff also helpful for them to arrange activities and support administrative matters.
The academic staff has created innovative products and services for forest development, such as cooperation with a private company to develop an inspiration lake and produce innovation to use plastic waste as infiltration wells. Also, the production of organic stimulant and drill method for pine resin harvesting in an eco-friendly way. The landscape game in an offline and online way. Furthermore, the safety car, the topic and practice by Japanese Forest Association harvest training, and achievement from the President of the Republic of Indonesia for the services in environment and forestry. The academic staff is also active in national and international organizations and activities. For example, being a coordinator, deputy and active member of IOFO, scientist in CIFOR, collaboration with many stakeholders at the national and international level, and management of a reputable international journal, namely Journal Manajemen Hutan Tropika. It means Journal of Tropical Forest Management.
We have the opportunity to experience international atmosphere by exchange program, summer in the course, international seminar, symposium, and international championship. The academic staff always remind us for preparing, so we have lots of achievement in national and international events.
International students, researchers and academics also often visit campus for collaborative research, guest lecture and international seminar. There are a lot of notable alumni. Several graduates continue their studies in reputable international universities. Most graduates get a job within 3 months after graduation, mostly in the fields of forestry and forestry-related fields in governmental institutions, private companies, international research centers, international collaboration agencies, and non-government organizations.
The Bachelor of Science degree program in Forest Management at IPB University is comprehensively supported by adequate academic facilities for education, research and community service activities of students as well as education staff and quality improvement. In the first year, students study in the common classroom to learn basic and general courses such as biology, chemistry and physics, with appropriate classes and laboratories. Classrooms with various seat capacities are available. There are classrooms with a capacity of up to 60 seats, but also rooms with less than 60 seats that have a capacity of up to 40 seats. Lastly, there are also classrooms with a capacity of fewer than 40 seats. Discussions or seminars can be held in different rooms depending on the number of participants. The rooms for discussions, seminars and guest lectures are the Forester Room, the Silver Room and the Rimbawan Room. Final examination rooms are also available. Sometimes these are used as discussion rooms for small groups. Furthermore, our facilities feature a smart room. It is a room that students can use to study together in small and big groups. It supports 4.0 technologies so that one can study comfortably. In the Laboratory of Forest Inventory, we provide traditional and modern tools to achieve learning objectives. Students can study how to get data and information about the quality and quantity of forest resources using various equipment and tools. The Laboratory of Remote Sensing provides 4.0 technology, meaning advanced technologies in remote sensing and geographic information systems. These technologies support students in exploring and studying forest resources and their spatial distribution. Students can operate modern tools and use advanced software. The Laboratory of Forest Hydrology and Watershed is designed to support students in understanding and applying the relations between atmosphere, vegetation, soil and water in resource, but especially forest management. Students practice hydrological data analysis as well as using the equipment in the field laboratory. The Laboratory of Forest Utilization is designed to help students understand and practice principles and procedures of forest utilization. Traditional and modern tools are provided so that students can experience using the equipment and adapting to all conditions of forest harvesting and utilization. In the Laboratory of Forest Policy, students have access to the Socio-Economic Studio. In this room, students can discuss social, economic and political aspects of forestry. Students often learn together, present their research findings and can explore the scientific books and articles for discussion. For outdoor activities as part of the lectures, we have an arboretum, the campus forest park, as well as Gunung Walat Education Forest. Furthermore, we also practice in the villages around campus, the Bogor Botanical Garden, as well as the C4 Research Forest to foster the knowledge and skills of sustainable forest management. In addition, we provide facilities needed by students such as an e-learning lounge, a gymnasium, an auditorium, a gazebo, an alumni lounge, a cafeteria, toilets, and praying rooms. A wide range of forestry measuring tools and digital platforms are introduced so that the students can become smart and innovative foresters. Intense interaction between students, faculty members, practitioners and local communities in academic activities is carried out to answer the latest issues related to forests and forestry around the world. Manage the forest, protect the future.
University Forest of Faculty of Forestry, IPB University, which is more familiar as Gunung Walat Educational Forest, is a good place for conducting forestry and environment education, research and community empowerment related to forest and environment management.
Inside Gunung Walat Educational Forest, the office facilities, multi-purpose joglo and hall, dormitories, praying room, and classes are available.
Joglo, a multi-purpose room, is utilized as dining room, lecture, discussion. relaxation, and entertainment room. Matoa Hall. A big multi-purpose room. It is utilizes as meetings room, delivering lecture as well as art performance stage. The hall capacity is about 600 seats.
2 Wolo and guest houses. The rooms are equipped comfortable furnitures. Dormitories. The bedrooms of dormitories are equipped with the beds that can be changed as needed.
In Gunung Wallet's educational forest, there are also outdoor playing grounds, such as camping ground, flying fox, pinball, sport facilities as well as bicycle tracks. The bicycle track is favored by the cyclist community.
In the Gunung Wallet Educational Forest, students from the Forestry and Environmental Faculty of IPB University carry out the practice of measuring the potential of biomass, especially trees. They also learning and practice the tapping resin system. The student also learn the system of transportation, marketing, and selling them.
In the educational forest of Gunung Wallet, students of the Faculty of Forestry and the Environment of IPB University also study forest hydrology and climate, as well as learn the wildlife of the forest.
In Gunung Wallet Educational Forest, the education staff and students of the Faculty of Forestry and Environment of IPB University also interact, learn each other with education staff and students from other universities, including foreign universities, such as Korea, Japan, British Columbia, Texas El Paso, Germany universities, and many more. Gunung Wallet Education Forest also provides research objects for students in completing their final assignments. The forest is not only viewed from biophysical sciences, but also from the point of view of sociocultural sciences and socioeconomics. The forest in Gunung Wallet Education Forest of the Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, also attracted researchers from foreign universities, such as from Japan, Georgia, Korea, Canada,
All right, thank you for the amazing video. Okay, looks like some our lectures have already joined. Please welcome to Professor Dr. Insinyur Nur Parihaheda and Dr. Insinyur Leti Sundawati, MSc F.Tro, and our speaker, Dr. Keito Mineo. Okay, for the next agenda is greeting from the Vice Executive of IEST 2022, Fran Indra Prawansyah. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. First of all, my name is Fran Indra Prawansyah, as Head of International Environomic Social Tech 2022. I want to say thank you to Mrs. Nur Parihaheda, as Vice Dean of Faculty of Forestry and Environment IPB University, Mrs. Leti Sundawati, as Secretary of Forest Management, Department IPB University, all the lecturer of Faculty of Forest and Environment IPB University, Dr. Keito Mineo and Megan King, a speaker of International Environment Social Tech 2022, and all participants who joined us today. IEST, or International Environment Social Tech 2022, bring the theme Agroforestry, hopes for the future of forestry and sustainable forest development. I hope with this theme, all of you can get some benefit from this event, including knowledge and relation. Once again, thank you so much for your attention and enjoy the show. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for Pran Indah Prawansya. And the next agenda is greeting from the President of FMSG or Forest Management Students Club, Johanna Natalia. Mrs. Johanna, the time is yours.
Is this my voice clear?
Yeah, that's clear.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Johanna Natalia Rahayaan, as the president of the Forest Management Students Club for the 2021 to 2022 period. First of all, I would like to thank the Honorable Mrs. Professor Dr. Insinyur Nur Parika Haneda, MSc, as Vice Dean of Academics and Student Affairs, Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, and the Honorable Mrs. Dr. Insinyur Leti Sundawati, MSc Prop, as the Secretary of the Forest Management Department, Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, and as well as the Honorable to the all lecturers from the Faculty of Forestry and Environment who have been pleased to attend. And I'm also deeply grateful to Mr. Keito Mineo and Mrs. Megan King as the speaker at this event. And also welcome to the all participants to the International Environomic and Social Talk IEST 2022. Praise and gratitude, let us always climb into the presence of God Almighty, who has given his blessings to us so that this International Environomic and Social Talk IEST 2022 can be carried out. Although it is far from perfect, but I hope that what the committee present at the seminar today can add new insight for all participants. I'm on behalf of Forest Management Students Club like to express my deepest gratitude for the support of all parties who have supported this event. That's all for me. Sorry if my pronunciation is not good enough, and hope you guys can enjoy this event till the end. Thank you for attention and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you so much to Ms. Johanna. The next agenda is greeting from Department Secretary of Forest Management, Dr. Insinyur Leti Sundawati, MSc FTROP. The time is yours.
Hello, is my voice okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Thank you, the organizing committee and MC, Honorable Dean the Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, represented by the Vice Dean of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Nur Parika Haneda, Honorable Head of Department or their representative and lecturer of IPB University, Honorable Guest Speaker, Mrs. Megan King, Executive Director of Fairveture Worldwide, and Dr. Keito Mineo, researcher of Kyoto University. My dear student of Department of Forest Management, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. This event is very important for us because we know that environnomic and social talk 2022 organized by our student of Forest Management Department is very important for us. I'm sorry. Because this international seminar is as a part of the effort for the student to improve their abilities in hard skill as well as soft skill and to widen their perspective and networking. Once a year, our student conducted an expedition to a certain place to learn directly in the field and communicate with the local people. And the result of the expedition is then presented in a seminar such as this seminar. This year, the expedition is conducted to the Gunung Walet University Forest. But before pandemic, the students have conducted expedition to Sumatra Island, for example. And I hope the next year the student could conduct the expedition to the, for example, to the project area of Fairveture worldwide in Central Kalimantan, or even maybe to African countries. So on behalf of the Department of Forest Management, Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, I would like to thank the Vice Dean of Faculty of Forestry and Environment who has taken the time to come to this event. And I would like to ask her maybe later on to formally open this meeting. I would like also to thank our very important guest speaker, Ms. Megan King and Dr. Keito Mineo, for their willingness to share their knowledge and wisdom with all of us, especially with our students. Thank you also to the organizing committee and all members of FMSC who has worked hard to organize this important event. Hopefully, this international seminar will run smoothly and successfully and provide benefit and blessing for all of us. On behalf of the Department of Forest Management, again, I would like to thank all of you, and I apologize if there is any inconvenience. Good luck with the webinar, and may God Almighty give us peace and guidance. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for Professor Dr. Engineer Leti for the greeting. Once again, welcome to IEST 2022. Okay, for the next agenda is greeting from Deputy Dean of Faculty of Forestry and Environment, Professor Dr. Engineer Nur Farika Hanida, MSc. The time is yours.
Thank you, Mbak MC. You can hear me?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Good morning, everybody. Greeting to all of us. First of all, let us always say praise and gratitude to the presence of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has given us grace, taufik, and guidance, so that we can all gather to attend this International Environment and Social Talk, IEST, webinar. It is a honor to me to speak on behalf of the faculty. After this serious pandemic, we need to bounce back after COVID-19 with the new spirit and the new normal. By organizing this kind of activities, I like to express my gratitude and thank you to the Forest Management Student Club and also Department of Forest Management. I think this international agenda is important to us, so we can learn forestry deeper, especially in agroforestry, for various academicians across the country. This year, IEST has the theme Agroforestry, Hope for the Future of Forestry and Sustainable Forest Development. This theme race is expected to be valuable lesson for all participants and can help increase knowledge in the forestry sector. Environment science took a big role in fascinating climate change issue. On behalf of the Forestry and Environment Faculty of IPB, I would like to thank all the committee who has worked to carry out this event, to all participants who taken the time to attend this event, and to the special speaker, Ms. Megan King, and also Dr. Keito, who has been willing to share the material, the knowledge, and also the experience in agroforestry. May everything we do be the blessing and good deed for our future. With say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I open this international seminar. Thank you, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for Professor Dr. Engineer Nur Faria Hanida for the greeting. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda is expedition session, which will be brought by Leni Eka Nurhawila as the representative of the expedition team. To Miss Leni, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Misha. Team, please show the share screen. Hello, team. Share screen, please.
Yes,
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible and the share screen is already. I think the Miss Leni have trouble for signal. Please wait for Miss Leni to join again.
Hello. I think my signal was unstable. May I stop my video? I'm sorry.
Yes, you.
Okay, I'm gonna start. Thank you. Good morning to all audience, National Anti Sundawati, Mr. Sonny Tristan, Mr. Omar Diana, Mr. Faria Hanida, and also for our speakers, Mrs. Megan King and Mr. Keito Mineo. I am Leni Kanarhawela, a member of the Forest Management Expedition, to explain the results of our expedition with the title Value of Benefits of NTFPS and Environmental Services of Forest Areas with Special Purposes, with a case study located in the Gunung Educational Forest. As an introduction, the number of our members in expedition team who took part in the field was 15 people, and the expedition was held on 9 until 14 August 2022. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, next slide, please. Okay, and for our presentations, it will start with introductions, the methods we use, the results and discussion, and it will end with the conclusion. Next slide, please. And for the background, first we gonna talk about the forest value. So the human perceptions of the meaning of an object, and in this case, of course, natural resources in the forest, applies to certain individuals at a certain place and time. And this perception can produce a value for forest resources, which comes from the various benefits that can be obtained by the community from a type of natural resource in the forest. And in this case, we use Gunung Walet Educational Forest as an object, or in short, we usually call HPGW. And HPGW is a forest area with a special purpose for research and research activities such as education, recreation, and utilization of non-timber forest products. And HPGW was established in 1968 through the decree of the Ministry of Forestry Indonesia number 188/2/2005 about the appointment and determination of the limited production forest area of the Gunung Walet Educational Forest area. And this study focuses on non-timber forest products, or it called NTFP. It contains useful foods, obtains materials and or commodities obtained from forests other than timber. And also in addition, it includes water, air, and indirect benefits from the forest. And it was on Indonesian law number 41 of 1999. Next slide, please. And the purpose of these expeditions is, first, we want to identify the forms of utilization of various types of NTFPs carried out by the community in the Gunung Walet Educational Forest area. And the second one is, we want to calculate the value of the benefits of NTFPs and environmental services of Gunung Walet Educational Forest. Next slide, please. And for the components of the method are research location and time, research subject, data collection, and data processing. Next slide, please. And next one is about our method, research location and time. The study is located in Nanggerang and Jipura Hamlet, Hagarmana Village, Cijantayan District, Sukabumi Regency, West Java Province. And for the time, start from proposal preparation until data analysis, it start from August until October 2022. Next slide, please. And here is about our research subject. Our research subject is the community, especially households in Hagarmana Village who live adjacent to or around the HPGW area. And the total of our respondents is about 36 households. Next slide, please. And next one is about the data collection. We use two types of data. The first one is a primary data, which contains in-depth interviews and direct observations in the field. And for the secondary data, we use HPGW general condition about HPGW and Hagarmana Village. And other supporting data were collected through literature reviews, reports, and similar research through relevant agencies. And next one, please. And for the data processing, We use three formulas. The first one is the formula to calculate water benefit value. The second one is about we want to calculate using formula for fodder value, and the last one is to calculate the firewood value, and the formula is attached on the slide. Next one, please. Okay, now we go to the results and discussion. Next. So we start from the Hagamana village, and Hagamana village has a population of about 6,000 population with a total area of around 200 hectares. And the general profession of the population is farming and laborers, and the physical condition itself is dominated by the hill and rain-fed rice field. And there's another condition there. Some households have a monoculture area around the house, and it is dominated by mangosteen. Next slide, please. And the next one, we want to talk about our respondent characteristics. And first, it starts by education level and age productivity. And based on our study, it found that the educational level of the respondent is divided into three stages. The first is elementary school, 77.8%, junior high school, 19.4%, and senior high school is about 2.8%. And regarding age productivity, we found that 77.8% are productive and 22.2% are not productive. And the maximum age of our respondent is 81 years old. And for the minimum age is about 21 years old. Next slide, please. And still about the respondent characteristics. Next one is talk about the gender. The respondent is contained with 75% men and 25% women. And the number of family members in the household of the respondent has an average of 4%, a maximum of 7%, and a minimum of 1%. Next slide, please. And these are the NTFP used by Hagamana villagers from HPGW. And it dominated by these three types of NTFP, such as firewood, fodder, and water. And actually, there is another type of NTFP, such as like orchard and something, but we not calculate that because that is not on our subject like that. Because the use of NTFP exclude that three types of NTFP is not massive, so we're not calculated. And then the next one is about the value of NTFP, and the first one is about the value of fodder. Based on our calculation, you can see in the table the existence of a source of fodder in HPGW can save the expenses of the Hagamana community. It shows that it can give a good benefit for the community because they can save the fodder. Instead, they buy it on or like they found in other place like that. So it shows that HPGW give a good advantage, especially in fodder. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay, and the next one is about the firewood value for bundle. Usually, Hagamana villagers prefer to consume their firewood rather than commercialize it. So they use it like for cooking or something. And based on our calculation, the value of the firewood per bundle is around 10,000 rupees. Next slide, please. Okay, and the next one is about weather value, and based on the in-depth interview, we calculate public perception. And the next one is about value of water. The purpose of water use consists of necessities for cooking, drinking, bathing, washing, and irrigation there. And based on our calculation, the value of water is about 600,000 rupees per year, or the same as 1,420 rupees per meter cubic. And next slide, please. And the next one, based on the in-depth interview, we also calculate about public perception of the existence of HPGW. The first one is about the social and education area. We can see that 58% agreed that the existence of HPGW has an impact on changing the behavior of the surrounding community, for example, like caring for the environment. And it indicates that HPGW has a positive impact on the behavior of the surrounding community. And the next one is about 67% of people agree that HPGW has an impact on the social surrounding community. Next slide, please. And the next one, we're still talking about the public perception in society and education area. It shows that 89% agree about the surrounding community also participates in maintaining the existence of HPGW, for example, like maintaining security and not destroying the area. And 72% agree that HPGW managers and the community interact well. Next slide, please. And this is the last public perception in social and education area. And it shows that 42% agree that HPGW increases community knowledge about forestry. Next slide, please. Next one, we also calculate about the public perception from the ecology aspect. And it shows that 89% agree that HPGW provides benefits to improve environmental quality, such as like water, air, coolness, fertility, and others for the surrounding community. And it shows also about 75% agree that HPGW can prevent natural disasters in the surrounding environment. And the next one, please. And this is the last public perception of the ecology aspect. It shows that 89% agree that HPGW is useful for flora and fauna, living space that is good for life, which is contained in TFP and others. Next slide, please. So based on our study and expedition, we conclude that the types of NTFP that are used by the community are firewood, fodder, and water. And the value of the benefits of NTFP in the form of firewood is about 10,000 rupees per bundle. Fodder is about 6,000 per sack. And the value of the benefits of environmental services in the form of water is about 1,000 rupees per meter cubic. And also it shows that public perception shows that the existence of HPGW has more positive impacts on the surrounding community, which consists of social, educational, and ecological aspects, as we mentioned before. Next slide, one. And this is the end of our presentation. We would like to thank the parties involved, such as the Department of Forest Management, the Forest Management Students Club, the Garmana Village Government, and also this event, International Environment and Social Talk 2022. And also we would like to thank to all audience for your consideration. We hope that the results of this expedition can be useful for HPGW managers and the Garmana community so that the NTFP in HPGW can be utilized and managed sustainably. Also, we are very welcome for the critics and suggestions about this expedition results, and we hope that research in this expedition can to be continued, particularly further in measuring other benefits of NTFP in HPGW, such as like orchid and other. And that's all from us. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Lani, for the great presentation, great research. Hopefully from the presentation, we can get a lot of insight, knowledge, and etc. And maybe some of you are planning to do some research Okay, for all, please give your reaction for Miss Lenny presentation. Okay, give your reaction from the great presentation from Miss Lenny.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator. Okay, please share the CV. Okay, let me read the curriculum vitae from our moderator, Christian Valerie. All right. Okay, professional summary. Krisan is an undergraduate student majoring in forest management with an interest in the social sector. Okay, we move on to experience. Her experience is climate science translator, Bahasa Indonesia, head of public relations, design and website division member, vice project officer, ICC goes to external, and her achievement is 5 most outstanding student of IPB University 2021, ASEAN Youth Peace Campaign Grand Nominee, Best Position Paper, FAO Asia Youth International Model United Nations, third prize of Ki Hajar Competition North Sulawesi, Yaki Ambassador Yayasan Selamatkan Yaki North Sulawesi, Tourism Ambassador Tomohon City, National Science Olympiad, finalist for Geoscience Indonesia, National Paskibraka, and Ambassador of the Ministry of Youth and Sport Affairs. Okay, for Christian Valerie, the time is yours.
Thank you so much, Misha, for the kind introduction. Firstly, I want to make sure if my voice is audible. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, audible.
Okay, thank you so much again for the kind introduction, as it is very humbling for me to be here. Right now, as we enter the first session for today's seminar, I want to bid warm welcome to everyone here, for everyone joining from various parts of Indonesia and from the international parts of the world. It is an honor for me to be moderating today's session, as we will be learning a topic that no doubt holds a significant value and urgency, especially in the midst of the environmental crisis. As a response to today's theme, we will kick off the session by deepening our comprehension regarding the nature of forestry itself. In this case, we will dive in this topic while we travel to a well-known country in East Asia, the country of Japan, famous for its never-ending innovations and high-value culture. Okay, with high regards, this session will be filled by an expert that will enlighten us deeper through the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Keito Mineo. And firstly, let me read a few notable records from Dr. Keito. Dr. Keito Mineo is a specialist for forest policy that pursued his bachelor degree, master's degree, and currently his PhD in the field of agriculture at Kyoto University, Japan. Besides conveying his dissertation study, he is currently working at the Institute for Chemical Research, Kyoto University. Dr. Keito, are you there?
Thank you very much for introduction. Can you hear me? This is Keito
Yes,
from
I
Japan.
can hear you, okay?
So
Can hear you.
I would like
Yes.
to share my slide. Okay.
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 So it is an honor to have you here, Doctor. And
Thank you very much.
yes, and ladies and gentlemen, for an hour ahead, we would give the stage to Dr. Keito. And in the last 15 minutes, we will end it with a discussion or a question and answer session. Okay, if it's clear, Dr. Keito, since everyone here is excited to hear from you, without no further ado, the time is yours.
Thank you very much for introduction. First, I would like to say thank you to all the organizing committee members and everybody contributed to this fruitful event. I'm really glad to be here with such talented forest students. And I'm also a bit nervous to talk about this topic. Okay, so today's my talk is titled that Lessons from Japanese Forestry, Condition Policy, and Opportunities as a Material for Future of Agroforestry for Self-Reliant Economic Community Welfare and Community Paradigm in Looking at Forests. As the moderator kindly introduced me, I am currently working at Kyoto University. Originally, I am from Hokkaido, north part of Japan. Here's my hometown. Oh, sorry. Here's my hometown. And now I graduated Kyoto University is here, the center of Japan. And then I took bachelor, master, and PhD in Department of Agriculture. My dissertation title was Study on Measures to Secure High-Quality Large Timber Needed for the Construction and Repair of Traditional Wooden Buildings. So my original topic is how to secure such special timber for traditional wooden buildings in Japan. And I'm also interested in forest policy and forestry industry in general. And the supervisor's name was Professor Mamoru Kanzaki, whose major is tropical forest ecology. So our laboratory is quite unique that half of the members studied about natural science, other half study about social science. And half are Japanese students, half are international students. After that, I'm currently working at Institute for Chemical Research. And in current workplace, all other colleagues are natural scientists, wood scientists, and chemists. I'm in new field. And it was maybe 2 weeks ago that one of my friends named Ms. Fita asked me to speak here. And I said, yes, it's okay. But at that moment, I didn't know this event is such a large and specialized on agroforestry. So I'm a bit, how to say, anyway, I prepared with my best. Okay, so let's go into the contents. First, here's the comparison between Japan and Indonesia. If we see area, Indonesia is such a large country and Japan is this size. If we see the population, Indonesia is more than twice of Japanese population. If we see population density, Japan is much dense. But maybe if you see Java Island, Java Island is quite dense island, as I know. And GDP, if we see GDP, Japan is much bigger, more than 3 times. And GDP per capita, almost 10 times larger. But the biggest difference is here, growth rate. Japan is matured country. Besides, Indonesia is quite young and active and growing rapidly. If we see forest area, Indonesia has mostly 4 times of Japanese forest. And forest coverage, Japanese forest coverage is quite high. One of the most one of the highest forest coverage country among developed country. If we see forest area per capita, both Japan and Indonesia is below world average. If we see climate zone, of course, Indonesia is tropical country, and Japan is diverse from subarctic temperature to subtropics. So here is my hometown, Hokkaido. Hokkaido is subarctic climate with much snow in winter. And here is hilly area in Japan. Here is hilly area. And this side, Japan seaside, is characterized by snowy winter. And this side, Pacific Ocean side, is characterized by dry winter, such as Tokyo. And actually, yesterday, I was in a conference in Okinawa. I was attending on a conference of International Union of Forest Research Institute organizations, UFRO. Maybe some of you might know, which was held in Okinawa. In Okinawa, you can find mangrove forests and other tropical flora and fauna. And here, this shows world population. World population is literally explosively increasing. Here, industrialization started in Europe. And after that, the world population increased in this way. Here, I put the figure of biology. A line shows that if there is no environmental capacity, the population increases logistically, like this. And then if here is environmental capacity, here the population do not increase. So the world pattern is quite similar to line A. And if we see the Japanese population's dynamics, some interesting point we can find. First, here we can see very similar to the line B. What is this? This is in the beginning of 17th century, Edo period started. Edo period, from here to here, is the government regime before industrialization. In this period, Japan developed, closed, but sustainable society. And from here, current government system started. The modern system has started. And from here, population increased. Here is World War II, and population increased like line A. But here, we are now here. We are now here on the peak. From now on, our population is going to be decreased. We can see similar pattern of C. What does it imply? It implies that our country was not sustainable. Yes, this is quite shocking, and I'm sad to say about this. But this figure clearly implies our society was not sustainable. So from now on, I am going to talk about more forestry issue. And well, today's talk is about, today's webinar is about agroforestry. And in my country, there's no typical agroforestry. And because I am a specialist of Japanese forest policy, my skill is, how to say, I was not confident to prepare about the typical agroforestry. So I decided to talk about the Japanese nature-human relationship. In Japan, as I mentioned earlier, population density is high, and this shows that here was environmental capacity. So this means in this period, our island was in maximum population size. In such high pressure, we developed unique relationship between nature and society. First, Satayama landscape. Second, Irii forest. Third, Yakihata forestry. Satayama consists of two words. Sato means village or residential area. And Yama means hill or mountain. So Satayama landscape is the landscape between village and mountain. Irii means Japanese community or Japanese common forest. Irii means collectively enter or collectively use natural resource. Yakihata forestry. Yaki means to burn, and hata means farmland. So yakihata means slash and burn type shifting cultivation. And yakihata forestry is yakihata and forestry. So burn, cultivation, and afforestation system. So Satayama landscape. Satayama is a mosaic pattern of woodlands, grasslands, croplands, paddy fields, settlements, irrigated pond, blah, blah, blah. Like if we take photo to the typical Satayama area, it is like this. Here is the road, here is village, here people lives, and here we can paddy and other fields. And you can see the color of forest is different. The dark green part have softwood or coniferous tree. Bright green part has a relatively young coppice regenerated broadleaf tree for fuels and fertilizers. So people living here tend to collect natural resources from the mountain. And because of various needs for natural resource, the land use pattern is like this pattern, mosaic pattern. And Satayama is also a nature maintained by human activities, such as periodic tree cutting in coppice woodland and agricultural activities. So Satayama is somewhat similar to agroforestry. Agroforestry is tend to be more intensive and narrow, but if we see broadly, Satayama and agroforestry have some similarity. And in Satayama, periodic human intervention such as logging, removal of dead branches, or cultivations brought high biodiversity by creating various niches for various variety of animals and plants. But because of fossil fuels, chemical fertilizers, and the replacement of work cows to machines, Satayama landscape was abandoned around 1960. So before 1960s, as I mentioned earlier, people tend to collect energy and material and food from Satayama. And then from Satayama to village areas, village people intervened the Satayama landscape and managed their livelihood and provides energy, food materials toward urban area. Culture, unique culture of rural area is also shaped in Satayama area and brought into urban area. But after the modernization, Satayama tends to be abandoned. Then urban area expanded, culture is owned by urban area people, and the people in cities import energy, food, materials from outside our country. Next topic, area forests, common forests. Area forest refers to a forest owned by a community or some communities. Area system has developed historically from very, very long history, but it became significant in 17th century because of the population growth. The characteristics of area forests is the rule governing system or regulation made by the community or by a community or communities, such as when to enter the forest or forest products to be collected or not to be collected. Maximum amount of the forest product to be collected, or punishment or enhancement. Such system was developed by the community members. And when modern government and policy system was established in 19th century, the late mid of 19th century, area rights became one of the issues in Japanese civil law in 1880s. Because in this period, area was quite important system for rural area. It was very large. There was a large debate among area rights. And in the current system, Area rights are the only rights defined following the area's custom. So this is the actual sentence of our civil law. Rights of common, that means area rights, shall be governed by local custom. It is defined in civil law, section 263 and 294. But because area rights were unfavorable for the government has attempted to modernize, limit or even delete the area rights. And for example, in the early stage, the government people tried to enclose and nationalize area forests. And then they didn't permit area rights in nationalized land. And after another phase, the government tried to transfer the area forest to the municipality-owned forest and limit the community's right, subject to the local government's ruling system. Or after World War II, Japanese government defined a law named Area Forest Modernization Law or Modernization Act. And in this context, modernize means split and privatized. And area forest and area rights, as well as Satayama, are forgotten as the society and people's lifestyle become modernized. Next topic, Yakihata forestry. Again, yaki means burning and hata means farmland. So Yakihata forestry is slash burn agriculture with forestry. And some researchers say this is Japanese town-year agroforestry. Yakihata agriculture and the Yakihata forestry have been popular throughout Japanese rural areas, or especially mountainous areas, since 17th century to the early years of 20th century, 20th century, sorry. So the local people define or decide where to burn, then community members burn forest in this way. And here is an example of Yakihata forestry managed in Keito area, Tokushima Prefecture. Before 18th century, local people did simple Yakihata without forestry in this Keito area, because the locals could use the forest almost freely. But after this year, the governors enclosed forest due to the commercialization of timber. And local people at that time needed to borrow forests from the governors. And then the governors forced to them the afforestation. Therefore, the local people did 2 or 3 years cultivation for millet or some beans. And in the 4th year, they did afforestation after the cultivation. And in Edo period, this system continued in Keito area. And after modernization, the Yakihata system was improved or renewed. In this period, not governors, but rich people in urban areas bought forests from the government as their assets. And then the locals needed to borrow forest from the rich people with contracts. And they did burn and afforestation in the first year. Then, after the afforestation, or at the same time with afforestation, they cultivate crops such as millet, beans, soba for 4 years. And then, after cultivating those crops, they change the plants into more tree-like plants, such as tea, mulberry, or paper mulberry. Then they grow them for 6 years. This improved Yakihata forestry system continued until 1950s, but after that, they stopped this custom. So, as I mentioned, all Satoyama system, Irie forest, and Yakihata forestry, all of those has declined or almost stopped in 1950s and 60s. What happened in this period? The answer is relationship between the nature and society fundamentally changed in Japan. For example, rapid economic growth, GDP became 4 times in 10 years. GDP per capita became 3.5 times in 10 years. Also, the lifestyle changed dramatically, such as the opening Tokyo Olympics and open of Shinkansen train and use of gas and electricity, even in remote place in 1960s. Such change resulted in the stop of those customs. Here I show the change of timber demand. This gray represents the demand for fuel wood. This orange represents the demand for pulp and chipwood. This blue represents the demand for songwood. And as you can see, here is 1955 and here is 1964. Sorry, this is a mistake. Here, still significant fuel wood demand exists. But here, like switching the button, like turning on and off, here is substantial demand. Here is almost no demand of fuel wood. That has 2 meanings. For rural people or mountainous villages people, they lost job opportunity. For mountainous villages, fuel wood is the forest product that they can earn money. But this huge demand suddenly stopped. Then, on the other hand, another meaning of the loss of fuel wood is Japanese people rely on oil and electricity, not from the bioenergy, but modern energy. And then industrialized wood demand for industries has increased dramatically. Therefore, they cut Satoyama or they stopped Yakihata forestry and planted softwood trees. So here is the population dynamics of mountainous area, urban area, rural area, etc. The red shows urban area, and green shows rural area. yellow, quasi-mountainous villages, and blue, mountainous villages. This is the index that in 2015 is 100. This represents the ratio of the time. And you can obviously find that the mountainous villages population keep decreasing. This is an example of a city where my university forest locates. So this blue belt is this city's population. Orange is here, green is here, and this is mountainous area. This is urban area. In before World War II, those three towns population were almost the same. But after that, here is 1955, here is 1965. Here, the decrease of population of mountainous villages started. They moved to this area, and then this town's people also moved to more urban area. This kind of population change occurred in 1955 to 1970s. And in mountainous area, it still continues. This is the typical landscape of abandoned Satayama. Here, people planted softwood tree, but because now the timber price is quite low in Japan, they stopped management. So the trees are very low quality and unhealthy. Here is former pine forest, which has been utilized as construction material for local people or fuels. It is abandoned, then started to die. Here is former coppice forest. It is also abandoned and became unhealthy and then started to die. This is very typical landscape in Japan. So, and recently, our research group found very interesting sign in the statistics. The green shows wood demand, and the block shows oil supply. It was surprising for me that the wood supply and oil supply has the same trend. Like here, oil increases more steep than wood, but that trend is almost the same. Here, almost the same, and here, almost the same. Yeah. And another thing is strong correlationship between oil supply and wood demand or domestic wood supply. At first, I calculated the correlation between this block and this wood demand. It has a correlationship, 0.72. It's nice, reasonable. But another correlationship, very strong negative correlationship between oil supply and domestic wood supply. Domestic wood supply is this bar graph. You can see if it increases, it decreases. And then those two have negative correlationship. And surprisingly, wood self-efficiency is not shown here, but wood self-efficiency and oil supply has very strong correlationship, minus 0.95. And I guess the reason for the negative correlation is quite unclear, but these phenomena might imply Japanese forestry couldn't survive in such market situation because oil is a dead body of ancient plants and animals. And after the very, very long time and high pressure and high temperature, the dead body became dense and liquid. And throughout from World War II to recently, oil price was quite cheap. In such situation, people tend to rely on fossil fuel, not bioresources. But another interesting thing is the new trend after 2012. So as I mentioned earlier, in this 60 years, those wood demand and oil supply have same trends. But after 2012, those decoupled. And from now on to the circular economy, maybe oil declines and timber supply will increase. So what I want to tell you from today's talk is famous environmental economics named Kuznets argued that if our income or something development level increases, environmental level will degrade. Maybe if you took the lecture of environmental economics or developmental economics, maybe you might know this name. So if society develops, they damage to the natural ecosystem, then in some phase, people got aware of, oh, environment is important. Then they try to recover them. And as I presented today, Japan experienced degradation of natural ecosystem. But please shortcut the damage. Don't follow us. Please shortcut the damage with agroforestry. So as I mentioned earlier, Japan has failed to sustain our society. This is sad to say as a Japanese, but again, our old ancestors succeeded to establish sustainable, closed but sustainable system, sustainable country. And from now on, our generation, I'm now 31, and our generation need to support more elderly people with less young generation. So this is concluding remark. Until recently, Japan has developed a society that relied heavily on cheap fossil fuel and neglected value of natural resources and communities, namely abundance or softwood plantation in Satayama. And then, as you know, monoculture is quite non-resilient, quite weak. Therefore, Japanese forestry is quite weak right now. we forget about area forests, the common forests, and neglection of local traditional knowledge in Satayama or community and customs. Recently, a few but increasing actors are re-aware of value of natural resources and communities, but rebuilding those values are very difficult because once we lose knowledge, it is very difficult to recover. So today's key message is success of agroforestry. As we all know, agroforestry needs very intensive management and very high level of knowledge towards natural resources. That is a key. Success of agroforestry, which provides various ecosystems at the same time and requires intensive collaborative management, can empower the individuals, can empower the local community, social sustainability, ecosystem, and the individual all together. In other words, agroforestry, and if you try to agroforestry, you need to take care of local community. Japan forgot about it. Japanese forest policy doesn't have community empowerment perspective, and our story has failed. Agroforestry's idea needs local communities' power, social sustainability, ecosystem, and individual. So that's all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keito. Please, everyone, let's give a reaction to the Zoom feature, an applause for Dr. Keito, because even though you were nervous, but you delivered a very insightful content. For me personally, there was a lot of key facts that I never knew before this, in which I found it is very surprising. And I think I am not the only one who thinks so. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Keito, I am very sure that there is a lot of questions that maybe the audience here wants to ask to Dr. Keito. And therefore, let us all jump into the question and answer session. And please feel free for the audience, for everyone here attending, to use the raise hand feature. You can raise your hand through the Zoom feature, or you can write in the chat box any questions that you want to ask. In the meantime, maybe I will inform everyone here that for now we will try to open 3 slots for questions. So if there is any questions coming, we will open for 3 people for now. And if we still have time in the end, we can extend more slots for the questions. In the meantime, Dr. Keito, I want to ask you, do you want to collect all the 3 questions first and then answer it once all of it's collected? Or do you want to answer the questions directly one by one?
Actually, both are okay. You can decide which is better.
Okay, sure. That will be managed. Okay. Is there any questions coming from the audience? Please.
I found a question that.
Oh, yes.
Do you share presentation with us? Yes, it's okay. So I will send it to the organizing committee.
Yes. Okay. Yes, the committee or the organizer will help share the materials.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any questions coming from the audience? Please, you can raise your hand or you can write in the chat box and I can help read it. Okay, we have our first question, another question in the chat box coming from Nigeria. Kush Mahmoud. He said that it was a nice presentation, and he asked, how can we improve agroforestry practice in the new area, looking at the industrialization activities? Thank you. Perhaps
Thank you.
can answer it now, Dr. Keito.
Yes, okay. So thank you for asking a nice question. Well, and now, yes, as you say, now we are in industrialization era. And my answer is to look at the community and institutional support. Okay, those 2 points are important. First, the quality of natural resources is not connected to individual quality of life, but also the whole of communities' collaborative welfare. And people's knowledge, single people's knowledge is limited, but we gather, we can get more knowledge toward nature. This is first point. And second, institutional support by the government is or specialists is important. From Japanese lesson, the government didn't support Satayama or Irie forests or Yakihata forestry. They tend to look at those kind of landscape to be modernized to more, how to say, more modern way, like to clear cut and make, for example, sports ground, or if we look at economic activities, the self-resilient village is not always reached. So if we look at only monetary value, it's better to work at the urban area and earn money. But so in case of Japan, the government's view was like that. They neglected the value of such kind of socio ecosystem, and they put higher value of money, currency. But the result is this. Not only natural resource, but people feel neglected and individualized. So in current complex era, it is very important to look at the value of life, human, nature, and plants. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Keito. I want to ask to Mahmoud if the answer from Dr. Keito can be accepted, and you can reply it in the chat box when you are available with the answer. We can try to move on to the next question, Dr. Keito.
Yes.
Coming from Martina. She asked that when you said that agroforestry practice has failed in your country, how valid is that? And what is the response of higher education? Thank you.
So how valid means, what is the meaning of how valid? How severe? Maybe how severe was that? Okay. Yes, thank you for your question. Not only Japan, but many countries or many officials looked at shifting cultivations, not good custom. Yes, it was same in Japan. So now this Japanese Taonya agroforestry is operated in very limited areas. So if I talk about Yakihata forestry, 97% maybe disappeared. Only 3% still exists. And if we talk about Satayama system, Satayama system is 80% disappeared. Some are still managed by locals and volunteers. And the response of higher education, yes. So Japanese in Japan, unfortunately, the status of forest students not so high because Japan focus on manufacturing but yes, as you say, the education changed to emphasize the value of natural resources recently in elementary school, junior high school, and universities. And now people, how to say, tend to know the value of Satayama ecosystem or traditional system. So the response or responsibility of education is important to to more specialized knowledge for students and to what to tell the people about the value of natural resources. This is my answer.
Okay, I hope that can answer your questions. And then we seem to have another question coming from the chat box from Shri Yitan from Myanmar. The question consists, are there any conflict between locals and government department in Japanese Taonya forestry, like disobeying the law to afforestation?
Yes. Thank you for good question. Yes, there is a conflict between government and Japanese Taonya forestry. Yes, local government sometimes strictly 100% abandons the fire. But before World War II, local people still did the firing. But because the lifestyle changed, they stopped the firing. So my answer is there were conflict between the local governments. But now, because the lifestyle has changed, there is no conflict anymore. Thank you.
Okay. So we still have time here, and we are going to open more questions if there is still questions to come. And in the meantime, probably I'm going to ask you some questions that I'm curious to hear about from you, Dr. Keito. So in your presentation, you also mentioned that in pursuing a successful practice of agroforestry, we should try to, or it requires an intensive collaborative management from a lot of stakeholders. So in your perspective on, or from your knowledge, what do you think are the measures that are needed to have this one perspective that can benefit a lot of stakeholders, that these stakeholders, of course, have many or have a variety of values that they hold in the first place?
Okay, thank you for your question. Let me see. So yes, your question is what is important to enhance variety of stakeholders. And let's see. The facilitation skill of the facilitator is quite important. In my experience, I've researched about the collaboration between local people and manufacturing companies to forest management. They tried to do forest management activity together, but the difficulties were between there because the knowledge or way of thinking of local people and manufacturing companies people are somewhat different. They cannot say it clearly, but because the environment they have lived are quite different, their way of thinking are somewhat different. Therefore, the government people or researcher became facilitator because the government people or researcher know, oh, local people think this because of this background, and other people say this because of this background. So we can coordinate those. This kind of facilitation skill of facilitator is quite important to successful collaborative management. Okay?
Okay, I agree very much in how these facilitations will help find a mutual value that can underlie the success of Agroforestry.
Yes.
That is very true. Okay, perhaps from the audience, are there any more questions that wants to be given to Dr. Keito? Please feel free.
Oh.
Okay, there is a Finandita from Indonesia that raises his hand. You can turn on your microphone and introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Okay,
Please,
thank you
the
so
mic
much,
is yours.
Yes.
moderator. Is my voice heard clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, moderator, and good morning, Mr. Keito. I want to say thank you for Mr. Keito because your presentation is great and good. And Mr. Keito mentioned GDP and the forest area between Indonesia and Japan. We can look. Japan has a small area, but Indonesia has a big area forestry, but it's so different in GDP. In Indonesia has a small GDP better than Japan. So my question is, how can we, especially future Indonesian foresters, better to utilize the forest area we have with technology and current development right now? Thank you, Mr. And I hope in my question can educate our foresters in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So first, I didn't show the size of forestry industry in Japan. Forestry industry in Japan is quite small, only 0.04% of the GDP, 0.04. Okay, so the forest rate ratio is 68, but the economic scale is 0.04. Okay, and that is because Japanese forest is good for forest, but not good for forestry. So my interest is on there, how to enhance Japanese forestry. And from my experience, yes, I've never been to Indonesia, but I have several Indonesian friends, and I think this is the time for sustainability to how to say to achieve really sustainable forest management is the way, your way. I believe so. And sustainability, as you know, refers to not only ecological sustainability, but social and economical aspects altogether. And sustainability is not a goal, but the process to the effort to achieve sustainability itself is part of sustainability. And to achieve sustainable forest management in that sense might be the ultimate answer for both economically and environmentally good forestry. This is my answer. Is it okay?
Okay, Inandita.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, this is probably going to be the last call for any questions that may emerge here. Please, anyone who wants to ask the question, there is still a chance. If not, maybe it will be best for us to end the discussion session. And also at the end of the material that you shared, you have also attached your contact info. So probably if any further discussions that may come in the future, ladies and gentlemen, you can also contact Dr. Keito for further discussions through that contact information.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your kind attention and nice moderation.
Yes. So, okay, I think that is all for the discussion session or the Q&A session. And thank you so much, Dr. Keito, because unfortunately the time is also running out. We must end this session soon. But before that, let me briefly retell a few key points that we got from this session to add up to all of the discussions that we had and also the topic that we have discussed. So as industrialization grows, Japan is one of the countries that faces conflict in implementing a sustainable resource option. Over the years, many man-nature approaches have been practiced in implementing an ecological landscape that uses promoting social welfare. Even though there has been a lot of failures here and there, we learned that from Japan's failure, there is a lot of approach that we have to learn from. Based on Kuznets and Munasi's curves, Japan has followed its curve where the higher the developments are done, environmental degradations follow. To prepare for the forestry sector in pursuing the success of agroforestry, comprehensive and collaborative approach must be done in order to empower the local community, social sustainability, ecosystem, and individuals. Okay, Dr. Keito, on behalf of the organizer and everyone attending, we would like to thank you for the effort and your time in helping the success of this event and for sharing such valuable knowledge to us, to everyone here that is attending. Okay, maybe the organizer can help present a certificate of appreciation on the screen. Okay, so on behalf of the organizer, we would like to present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Keito, again, for the wonderful contribution that he has given to us.
Thank you very much. It is
Yes.
great honor for me. Thank you very much.
It is an honor for us also. Okay, it is very humbling to have you today, and may we meet in the future in future occasions, and may you be blessed abundantly with good health. Thank you, Dr. Keito.
Thank you very much. I'm welcome to, if you come to a chance to come to Kyoto or Japan, please contact me. Thank
Okay,
you.
awesome, awesome. That is well noted. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. Keito, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that is all for session 1 today. And maybe for everyone that will be attending the second session today, I will see you again at probably at 1 p.m. And for now, I give the floor back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Okay, before the first session is over, we will take pictures first. To the participant, please turn on your camera. Okay, please turn on your camera. I will wait about 3 minutes. Okay, it's look like it's done. To the operator or PDD, please take a picture and the countdown is on me. Okay, for the first slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the second slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you so much for all to turn on your camera. Okay, the next sessions is, okay, this is closing first session. The first session has been complete, and after this, there will be a second session featuring amazing speakers. So for all participants, please return to the Zoom room at 1 p.m. Okay, don't forget to return to the Zoom at 1 p.m. and we will invite you to return to the Zoom. Okay, thank you so much for all the participants who joined it. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. See you at 1 p.m.
Thank you.
the four: Indonesia, Kosovo, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nigeria, Senegal, Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, Germany, and Pakistan who have participated in this event. It's an honor for us with the time difference, language difference, and cultural difference, but we can build relationship through this event. Thank you so much once again. Okay. Next is, before we move on the next agenda, I want to ask you guys, how was your break? Please drop how was your break at the chat box or give some reactions, or maybe someone wants to tell me. You can turn your microphone. Okay, drop your how was your break in the chat box or reactions. Great. Some of you give the reactions. Enough. Great. Okay. Great. All right. Okay. All right. Some of you is give the reactions good, great, enough. Okay. For the next agenda, we will guide again by our moderator, Mr. Christian Pellery. So, Miss Christian Pellery, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, the time is yours.
Thank you so much, Misha, for your time that has been given to me. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the second session. It is the last session, but of course, it is not the least. In the first session, before, we talked about lessons learned from Japan's forestry and how they practiced nature approaches in landscape management. In this session, we will learn how agroforestry takes its role against the climate crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the United Nations, global populations is expected to increase by 2 billion people, from 7.7 billion currently to 9.7 billion in 2050. To meet the demand for food by 2050, production will have to increase by over 60%. These figures, coupled with current problems born out of the past and existing non-sustainable land use practices, provide the case for changing the way we manage lands and our production of agricultural and trade goods. Thanks to this multifactional properties, agroforestry is part of the solution to addressing these issues, whether they be environmental, economic, or social. And to dive deeper, this session will be guided by an distinguished guest speaker, someone who has dwelled in the world of sustainable forestry works and now is already pinned to the screen right now alongside with me. So everyone, please welcome Mrs. Megan King. Hello, Mrs. Megan, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How's the sound quality? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly.
Wonderful. First problem solved.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so yes, hi, Mrs. Megan. Firstly, maybe I may want to introduce your resume to everyone here attending. So everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Megan is currently working at an organization called Fairventures Worldwide, and previously she pursued her bachelor's studies in Russian Studies and English Communications in Randolph College. She then pursued her master's degrees in Professional Communication or PR in LaSalle University, and then with a variety of career backgrounds, as you can see on the screen, from being a lecturer to grants manager, our speaker is now the co-chief executive officer for the Fairventures Worldwide. And more about this organization, we will learn together later in the session. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, please welcome Mrs. Megan King. And hello, Mrs. Megan. It is an honor for us to have you here, joining us at your part of the world. And well, we're very excited to hear from you, from what you can share through this session. And of course, before we dive in more deeper to this session, I would like to inform everyone here that for an hour ahead, we would give the stage to Mrs. Megan to deliver the topic. And in the last 15 minutes, we will end the session with a discussion or a question and answer question. So, well then, if all is clear, sorry, Mrs. Megan, since everyone here is excited to hear from you, without no further ado, the time is yours.
Okay, great. Are you able to share my presentation, or would you like me to share it from my computer?
I can ask the organizer to present the materials.
Okay, fantastic.
Here you go.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Megan, and I am coming to you right now from Palangkaraya, which is the capital city of the province of Central Kalimantan, which our Indonesian guests will know where I'm sitting. To anyone who's not based in Indonesia, it's the big island of Borneo, the Indonesian half called Kalimantan. I work with an organization called Fairventures Worldwide. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so Fairventures Worldwide is an organization that's based in Stuttgart, Germany. And we are a slightly strange animal. We are what in German is GmbH, which basically means a nonprofit limited company, which is a very strange composition, which means we're a nonprofit profit-making company. And that constellation exists only in Germany. And so it gets a little confusing when we try to talk about what we are around the world. But the closest thing that you can think to is a classic nonprofit. The only difference is that I have a board of shareholders who have non-monetary shares that we report to. And so we have a board of people that are invested personally in what we do. And every few months, we have a review committee to make sure that we're going in the right direction. But you can kind of put us in the box of nonprofit. And if you're a German, you understand exactly what we are. We are focused on restoration projects. And the restoration projects that we work on are in Indonesia and only in Central Kalimantan, one of the areas of significant deforestation in Indonesia. And our second country office is located in Kampala in Uganda. And we are working in Uganda because we have traditional ties to the forestry sector in Uganda. And Uganda is one of the most deforested countries in Africa. So we're focused on Kalimantan here in Indonesia, and we're focused on everywhere except the north of Uganda. And we have programs focused on reforestation and afforestation. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a nutshell what we do. The main meat of what Fairventures does is we look at areas that have severe deforestation and that have communities that are facing crisis due to that deforestation. And what we do in a simple term is that we deliver seedlings. We do needs assessment for what potentially can meet local market demands and what has the chance to afforest areas that have lost their cover in a way that is not focused on conservation. That may be something that's a little bit different about what Fairventures Worldwide does when you look at us versus other organizations that are working in forestry. We're not a conservation organization. We are looking at bringing trees back to areas that have been deforested, but bringing them back in the way that creates what we call a good forest. And a good forest for us is a forest that adds to cover, that adds to forest cover, that creates some type of carbon lock that acts to mitigate climate change. But very importantly for us, a good forest is not only a forest that exists for conservation. A good forest is a forest that provides livelihoods to the communities that have traditionally been attached to those forests. So we are looking for ways to serve the people that have been the traditional guardians of a forest, and not to turn those people out of the forest. And that's quite a challenge. How do you create a program that adds to forest cover, but still provides significant income to families? And we're not talking simply about NTFP harvesting and something that adds additional income. We're looking for ways to turn traditional lands into profit-making endeavors and to empower local farmers to act as entrepreneurs. You know, anybody that's worked in farming knows that a farmer is not an agronomist only. A farmer is a small businessman or woman. And farmers have to have one side that looks at the nature and the land cover of the land that they own, and the other head that a farmer has to have is a business head. And any small farmer will tell you that running a farm is really a challenging business endeavor. And that's really what we're looking for. I think somebody's not muted. There you go. Good job. So we're looking at ways that we can really encourage the people that cooperate with us, and we can empower them with information so that they have choices that they can make, and that they're stewards of their land in a way that's good for their own family as well as for our global community. So we have been focused on the restoration of a little over 1,000 hectare in Uganda and in Central Kalimantan. And that number, when you look at plantation sizes, that number is not a very big number. And the reason that we are still encouraged, even after operating for several years and looking at only 1,000 hectare, is that it is incredibly challenging to empower farmers to make their own decisions, and then to give them the tools that they need in the face of so many competing commodities. Especially in Central Kalimantan, we are faced with monoculture oil palm plantations. There is a large amount of land in Central Kalimantan that is available to whatever commodity is able to provide livelihood options for farmers. And specifically in this part of the world, that means oil palm. So we're looking at ways that we can avoid monoculture and that we can keep farmers on their land, and that they can choose a composition of commodities for their land that makes sense for them. In Uganda, our big competing commodities are eucalyptus and pine, which are in Europe. Pine is considered not a competitor for natural resources, but in a country like Uganda, eucalyptus and pine, both when they're grown at plantation size, are large consumers of water. So we have a lot of challenges that come when you have large monoculture plantations in East Africa that are focused on eucalyptus and pine because they're draws on the local water. So we're looking to provide different options for farmers that are non-monoculture, that are different than the competitors that are existing in the local communities. And we do so, like I said, through seedlings, but also, like all traditional agroforestry organizations, we also believe in the farmer field school method. So we do a lot of on-the-ground training year-round. We have, for our timber programs, we have 6 days of training in a first series, followed up by an additional 4. Our other commodity programs are even more intense. And we believe, as most standard agroforestry organizations, that you work with farmers in the fields. So we focus not only on seed distribution, but we also do a lot of intense training with the farmers in their fields. And we also have a lot of outreach programs so that we can share with the communities as much information as we can so that farmers are empowered to make a decision for themselves. These numbers are a little bit outdated. These are from before the pandemic ended. We are about 60 people right now, and I would say we're closer to about 75% that are Indonesian and Ugandan. We're a little bit different in our philosophy towards forestry. We work very hard not to send foreign experts. So we've really made the strong choice to say that what we want to do is we want to find resources in country that are able to provide guidance for our programs. And I've been in development work for over 25 years, and there are very few examples where someone that came that I've found in my own personal work, and I realize that there are lots of other examples that I haven't had. But I have very few examples where we brought someone from a country outside of the target area, and they were able to truly craft a program or to give us specific real world advice that helped us shape a program. And again, I understand that's very different from a lot of other NGOs, but what we're focused on is trying to craft our programs with our national staff, not with any expats. The word expat is kind of forbidden in our organization. And we really work to make sure that the information and the knowledge is coming from the ground. We are right now, this is a really exciting number for me. When we talk about female leadership, we are 2 CEOs at Fairventures, me and my colleague Wolfgang Baum, who is a German man. So right there, we're 50-50 at the very top. Our country director for Indonesia is a woman, and our country director for Uganda is also a woman. So we're represented at above 50% with female leadership level. And then as we go down, we aim to positively discriminate and hire as many female foresters as we can. And we work really hard to make sure that the leadership structure all the way down to the ground has as close of a gender balance as possible. And that's really, it's not an afterthought at Fairventures. It really is something that we think very carefully about. Okay, can I see the next slide, please? Fantastic. So there are 3 sisters at Fairventures. There is Fairventures Worldwide, which is the organization that I represent. We have a sister called Fairventures Social Forestry, which I'll tell you a little bit about later. And we have a sister called Fairventures Trio, which is an ag tech company that has created an application that we're going to be using in the future. And I'll go into Trio a little bit later down the road. But when I talk about worldwide, I talk about smallholder farmers. And what's really critical to us is to continuously work with our farmers to find a composition that makes sense for the challenges that they face. And I'm sure all of you know the challenges that smallholder farmers face in a country like Indonesia. You have 3 different kinds of financial need. If you're a subsistence farmer, a small scale smallholder, you have immediate needs. You have the needs of school fees and paying for a doctor bill or paying for some type of family ceremony. There are always these initial short-term needs that our farmers have. So we recognize that we need to build into our program these kinds of short-term return on investment, short-term income that they can generate immediately when needed. Then there's a more midterm income need that our farmers have. They need something that they can count on a regular basis. What is a potential income that I would have every year into the future? So month by month, I can plan when I could potentially have money coming in. And then there's this long-term bankable, I like to think of it as the bank, some type of commodity that goes into a local, into a stand of trees that would be a bankable commodity down the road. So we look at these three needs that our communities have. And then we think, if we recognize that there are these needs that we have, the question then becomes, how do we find a solution that provides a good forest for our individual farmer, and at the same time is taking into consideration the larger question of climate change and the need for mitigation in the tropics. I don't have to tell this audience why it's important to plant trees in the tropics. We all know that one of the keys to any potential climate solution is going to come from the forests of tropical countries. So how do we do that in a way that provides short, midterm, and long, excuse me, long-term support for farmers? We believe that 60%, that bankable long-term planned income is timber. And specifically, the timber that we work with in Indonesia is a timber called sengon, which is a super fast growing, what we call light wood. Timber engineers would classify it as softwood, but that's got a bit of a pejorative term to it. So we use the term lightwood to talk about specifically the species of sengon and jabon that we're able to grow in central Kalimantan. So, and I'll come to the value chain a little bit later about how we work to make sure that there are potential off-takers for that timber down the road. But we recommend to our farmers that investing in a timber crop and using up to 60% of your specific area is a good idea for the long term. And then we look at that other 40% based on the specific farmer's needs. How much short-term income do you need immediately in order to hang on to your land? Can you put in 30% of a crop like cocoa, which we believe has a big potential? We're working in the east of central Kalimantan in areas where cocoa has traditionally grown. And we're finding out through quality checks that the cocoa that's coming out of central Kalimantan is of extremely high quality. So as we expand those programs from the east, where cocoa has been traditionally grown, into the central and western provinces of central Kalimantan, areas of central Kalimantan, we hope that we'll find the same. We're testing now with test fields across the area. What is the potential to intercrop with cocoa? Cocoa is a commodity that anywhere you go in Indonesia, you will find cocoa trees, and you will find a huge market for cocoa. That is not the case in central Kalimantan. I've been searching and searching and searching for cocoa trees, and I found 2 in the area of Katingan last week. 2 trees, not 2 farmers. So the fact that this area of central Kalimantan where we work was forest until the 1970s and the 1980s, when the logs were cut and most of the area was cleared. This part of the world missed the cocoa revolution of Indonesia. So we're looking to reach out to our government partners and ask the question, would it be possible to include more cocoa work in central Kalimantan? And the answers so far have been a very strong yes. So when you think about what is it that Worldwide does, Worldwide works with individual farmers in order to help them become true entrepreneurs, to help them become the managers of their farms, not someone that's reacting to a market, but someone that has information on different commodities and can truly plan what's best for his or her family for the future. And we provide as much information and support and answers to questions as we can. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Fantastic, thank you. One of the reasons that we chose to work with sengon is the speed at which it can recover an area that's been cleared in the past. You can look here on the left side of the photograph where you see where we were a year before planting sengon. The trees grow amazingly fast if we're lucky to find soil type that works and in an area where we can avoid flooding, which is more and more of a challenge in central Kalimantan. In the past, we were able to predict floods based on traditional knowledge. People knew areas that flooded, they knew areas that didn't flood. What's happening to us now is that areas that have never experienced flooding in the past, starting about 3 years ago, are now experiencing floods 2 to 3 times a season. And I'm sure that our colleagues in areas that are experiencing high flooding, I think that was mentioned that Bangladesh, we have a visitor from Bangladesh here. We all know the faces, the challenges that countries are facing all around the world. The climate's changing. In the tropics, it's changing more rapidly than anywhere else. And flooding has become something that we are truly concerned about. So areas that we want to work in, because we know that the soil would support the type of trees that we're promoting, we're now having to overlay maps of land ownership areas that are advantageous to us, together with where we have soil maps that show what we think can work for farmers in the future. And now we're overlaying flood maps on top of those, which are continuously changing every day. So I'm sure everyone on this call knows what a challenge it'll be in the future. In addition to floods, the rains have changed. Central Kalimantan used to have a very, very predictable rainy season. We knew that the rains started in November, and we knew that the rains ended in May. And it was like clockwork that we could predict. Kalimantan has more rain than most parts of Indonesia, so we didn't have a completely dry season, but we did have times of the year where we were not concerned about flooding, where we could plan our operations in different cycles, and that has dramatically changed. And that has changed not only in Indonesia, where now we still refer to a rainy and a dry season, but we acknowledge very well that last year we had a rainy season almost the entire year. And we haven't looked at the impact of that kind of change on different species that require dry periods of time to flower. But it's something that we're very concerned about. In Uganda, we also have a challenge with the rains. Not that the rains are continuously all year, but in Uganda, the rainy seasons have shortened. On both sides of the rainy season, they've moved in by several weeks. So where in the past we knew that we could expect rains on a given month, in a given week, now we're really having to gamble with seedling production and when we're ready to release things and when we're going to be able to count on rains. And in Uganda, we also have the flooding issue that goes with that. So we're having extended periods of dry, and then we're dealing with much higher rates of flooding in the past in areas that had never faced those problems. So like all forestry, all agricultural NGOs around the world, we're having to adapt to climate change as it's happening literally in front of us. Move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this just shows you a little bit of the landscape that we come into. Fairventures Worldwide goes into areas that have been deforested. So we go into areas that have been clear cut because of logging, that were areas that maybe had been logged and then had been subject to forest fire. Central Kalimantan has had the past 8 years some very significant severe forest fire. So we have areas where the fires have gone through and burned, and the farmers are really at a loss as what they should do next. What ought they to grow? So that's where we come in to provide advice and to try to counsel on ways that they can use their land that will not only recover some of that deforested land, but that will also help them in the future with income. Next slide. This just shows a little bit more of our guys out in the field. We have a pretty big team of foresters and forestry assistants that are spread all over Central Kalimantan. These are pictures from Central Kalimantan. And we also have a fantastic team in Uganda that are on the ground. And we work really hard to transfer knowledge so that we don't have one master trainer and lots of other assistants, but we work really hard to make sure that our teams are consistently empowered to represent the message of Fairventures at each level. You can go to the next slide for me. Great. Okay, so something that might be a little bit different about what we do versus some other organizations is that if you look at this slide on the left side where you see inputs and land use, that's your classic area where an NGO, and in my past jobs, that's where we've been focused. NGOs look at nurseries and distribution and farmer field schools and getting those forests planted, getting some type of mixed agroforestry system planted, and then you hope all the best for the farmer. You hope, so here's all this great input, and if you're really successful, it'll be great that you'll be able to sell these things down the road. And what I've learned in my career is that that type of wishful thinking, it's important to start, but it doesn't necessarily deliver any type of real change to a farmer. And this may be, you know, it's difficult if you're trained classically in development work to start thinking like a business, but that is one of my biggest pieces of advice to any project that is being developed, is that anytime that an NGO is talking about any type of agricultural work or agroforestry with a group of farmers, keep in mind who is going to buy the product before you start designing the project. And then as you work, every minute that you spend working with farmers, you need to spend the same amount of time working with the off-takers. And that's really the role of the NGO here, is to pull both sides together. And in my past work, that whole idea of pulling in the off-taker was the thing that we knew the least about. And it was the thing that we were the most hopeful and wishful, but it was also the place where we spent the least amount of time, simply because we didn't really understand what we were talking about. Now, it's a challenge if you're not from the business world, if you don't come from the private sector. It's a challenge to frame the discussion in a way that you understand the needs of the private sector and you're able to recommend commodities to farmers that fill gaps down the road. So we have teams that are focused on in the ground on forestry, but we also have timber engineers that we work with, and we work with associations of growers. In Indonesia, we work with it's called ILWA, the Indonesian Lightwood Association. It is a loose affiliation of factories and business owners and industry leaders who use what we call lightwood, the production of bare core and the production of plywood, products that use this type of super ultra light wood. And we keep those people very, very close to us as we design our programs for the farmers. So we have the amount of demand, the volume of timber that's required by the industry, and that helps guide some of the choices that we make for our farmers in the field. But we also realize that the drive for lightwood on Java, and it's a high demand on the island of Java for as much lightwood timber as we possibly could produce. But all of you who are based on Java know that the question of land and being able to expand into new commodities with large amounts of hectare is almost impossible. Java is a populated island, and it's an island of master agronomy. The land is food producing, and you don't have large parcels of land that are completely unused. On Kalimantan, on the island of Borneo, we have the exact opposite. We have more land than we possibly can do anything with right now. There is land opening up daily, and it's deforested, which means it's cleared. The topsoil is not great. The topsoil on Java is amazing and will grow just about anything. Sumatra doesn't have problems with topsoil. We on Kalimantan face a lot of challenges, but we have land. We have land and we have interest. So we're working the value chain now to say, okay, so if we have timber on Kalimantan, how do we get that timber from Kalimantan to the areas where it can be processed on Java? How do we break that value chain down so that we can deliver more income to the farmers? And that's a huge challenge. We're harvesting now for the very first time, and it's very, very expensive to move timber from Borneo to Java. And that's something that we are looking at and trying to dissect and understand what we can do to hack the value chain. Where are we making mistakes? How can we partner with government to get pre-processing plants built on Kalimantan? That's one of our really big pushes. And just this morning, I spent my morning with some members of the German parliament who were here in Central Kalimantan visiting us, and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and saying to the Ministry of Trade, you know, this is not a farmer project. We have the farmers, and you can go out, you can see farmers, you can see land, but this is a timber harvesting value chain project. How are you going to help us? How can you help us? NGOs make a very classic mistake. And if any of you are about to begin your careers and you can remember one thing that I tell you, have that one thing be that every step that you take in a nonprofit world, in a non-governmental world, it needs to be hand in hand with your government partners. Government is not there as someone you invite to speak at a conference. Government is not there as an afterthought when a problem happens. If you want to have a truly successful and sustainable program, you need to work from the very first day with all the levels of government that you possibly can involve. That's a lesson it took me a long time to learn. I used to think of the government partners as almost a burden for this great idea that I had and this wonderful thing I wanted to do. And I made a lot of mistakes. So I would encourage you to keep your government partners very close, to listen to them, to design programs together with them. And that second big lesson is to keep this diagram in mind. Anytime you're working as a forester and you see that beautiful part in the second column from the left, the land use part, that's where most of you live. And I know that that's a beautiful place to live. I would rather be in a forest than be just about anywhere. But when you're in the forest, keep how that forest is going to be used in mind, and keep that as your core why, and it'll help you guide you to make better decisions about program implementation. So keep the value chain of whatever you're growing, keep it in mind as you develop the work and as you develop your program and you work within your organization, keep that value chain close to you. Okay, next slide, please. The way that we do that, and I mentioned before that we have timber engineers that work with us. So I just this morning came from the launch of the product that you see on the left. And it is a modular wood construction. In Europe, in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, most of the construction materials for wooden construction are using a methodology, a technology called glulam. Glued and laminated pieces, where we can take very small pieces of wood, glue them together, press them, and create very, very strong braces that we can use in construction. So we can use wood, timber, to build an entire house. We don't need concrete, we don't need steel, other than the foundations. The entire inside of a construction can be wooden. And you see that creates a higher demand for the specific types of wood products that we're growing, the commodities that we're growing. We work to develop this inspirational future vision of what wood could do, what timber could do in mass timber construction. And in Indonesia, we just opened the very first on Kalimantan glulam structure was opened this morning. It's a house that sits at the Ministry of Forestry. So if you're in Palangkaraya, please go visit our ministry friends, and you can see your very first example of glulam mass timber construction on Kalimantan. It was funded by the German government and the Good Energies Foundation, and we worked with German architects to bring in the idea. What we realized this morning is that we don't need German architects because the idea was wonderful, but it's made for German standards. So we now can compress and cut the amount of the size of the beams. We can reduce the value, the input that it costs to build these houses and make them more affordable for the Indonesian the market. So what we're doing now is we cut the ribbon this morning, and now we're starting work on the second prototype, which I hope will be more efficient, more effective, and less costly for Indonesia. We're going to keep pushing to make sure that we have this visionary end of the value chain goal down the road. You can see this is the office building where our office is in Kampala. And we're working with the local city administration to add an extra floor onto an already existing office building because it's wood, it's light. We're not going to be putting another layer, another floor of concrete and steel. There will be an all wooden teaching structure on the building of our office. And we're located right around the corner from the Central Parliament. And we hope that we'll be able to use this teaching space as inspiration of how you can construct in timber. And there's a high demand because there are so many timber, pine, and eucalyptus plantations all around Uganda and Kenya. There is a lot of interest in wooden structures. So we're really pushing the industry to consider what's possible. But remember, we're a forestry-based environmental organization. So it seems strange. We have timber engineers building buildings. The reason that we're doing that is to create higher demand for the type of wood that goes into a good forest, the type of timber that goes into a good forest that eventually provides income for the farmers in a cycle, so that our farmers are growing something that they know 10 years from now there'll be a higher demand for than there is now. And so that's that idea of working both sides of the value chain at the same time. Next slide, please. Great. So that in the past was Fairventures Worldwide. And even though we are this strange German classification, you can think of us as the nonprofit. Okay. Then we have two sisters that I told you about. The first sister is social forestry. In 2019, we started working with a group of landowners who had been given a social forestry permit. And I'm sure all of our Indonesian foresters know how incredibly complicated land ownership and forestry regulations are in Indonesia. And it's very, very challenging for groups of farmers who are classified in social forestry areas. It's very challenging for them to understand the potential and the power that they have in a social forestry area. You have to work together. You have to have a common goal. You have to have a common vision. And most importantly, you have to have some capital. Somebody has to come in and help you, your social forestry group, start. The countries that have an interest in financing these kinds of initiatives find it very challenging to work with individual groups of farmers. So that's where we came in to try to bridge some angel investors who wanted to get involved and investing in some type of reforestation program in Indonesia. We were the bridge between the local community that also wanted to start a plantation and these investors. And we grow lightwood through Sengon and Jabon in our nonprofit. So what we said was the plantation should focus on these types of timber species, because then for the next 10 years, we all work together on the value chain so that we can find off-takers that are willing to take every single cubic meter of timber that we can produce that are able to take them off. So that's where we are right now. There's a concession given to a social forestry group, the Hakayam Batu Bulan. It's about 4,000 total hectare, about 3,000 that have 3,000 hectare that have land that could be used. And we have already planted most of the land that was deforested in the area. Now we're working with the local community to consider what do we do with the existing areas that have mainly rubber, unproductive rubber stands. What do we do with them? Is it a higher potential to leave the stands and look at what carbon is going to mean in the future? Should we replace the stands? We're working with the communities to decide what's the best option for them. And the sister that does all of this investing is also called Fairventures, but she is called Fairventures Social Forestry, and she's a profit-making organization that brings in funding. And the plantation at Batu Bulan is more monoculture than my organization, the Fairventures Worldwide, supports, but their targets are very different. They have secured foreign investment that has to be repaid before profits can be shared with the local community. So they work on a different model, and they also work on a model that has the goal to scale much larger and much faster than I can, working with individual farmers and individual farmer groups on a local level. Next slide, please. Trio. Okay, I invite you all to check out Trio. You can hopefully, it's another sister, so I haven't checked the App Store in the last month, but I hope Trio is there. Trio is a really exciting application that was born in my organization in Fairventures Worldwide about 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, we decided we needed an application that would put the power of our foresters in the hands of the farmer. Our farmers don't have a good idea of what each individual tree in their stand is worth in terms of family income. They don't have a way to say, this tree in my stand right there, I know is worth 500,000 rupiah today. And 6 years from now, if I let it grow beyond its target, it'll be worth 1 million rupiah. They don't have that power. And we can't send a forester to each of 2,000 farmers to tell them how to estimate every single tree that they have. So we asked ourselves the question, how can we put a farmer in each stand through a mobile phone? So what we started 5 years ago was this work to take a picture, calibrating against a credit card. It's a Trio card. It's a very specific size and color. You see the middle picture there. You hold the Trio card, you hold the calibration against your mobile phone, against the tree, and the algorithm is trained to recognize and predict the amount of volume of timber in that specific tree based on the photograph. And the algorithm, it's taken us 5 years and a lot of computer scientists to work on the question. The app is, last time I checked, 95% accurate, which is amazing. And we are super excited about Trio. We started Trio in order to put the power in the farmer's pocket. And this was when carbon was being discussed, but carbon was not the only thing that was being discussed as it is now, right? So the secondary function of Trio, which has actually surpassed the power of a forester in your pocket, is carbon. In addition to being able to predict yield, timber volume in a tree, the app can also pretty accurately predict the amount of carbon that can be sequestered in each individual tree. And the power of that is that people that are looking to offset are almost, we're not quite there. The links are not finalized yet, but our goal is to put those people that have funds and want to offset, to put that information and that power and that money directly into the hands of the farmers that are growing. Now, what a revolution that would be if we didn't have to talk about certificates, and we didn't have to give lots of money to auditing organizations, if there would be some way to independently verify the carbon that was being stored in individual farmer stands through an application, so that both ends have total transparency, and the government of Indonesia can assign carbon credits based on all of that information. It is a revolution. And that is why Trio went from being a very small project as part of Fairventures Worldwide to spinning out last year. And they just went through their first round of startup funding, which was successful. So they're a fully funded startup. And I invite you to check out trio.one, which is the webpage, and learn more about the app. And you can reach out to Trio and ask questions, comments. And if you have partners that are growing trees and you think this type of single tree traceability, Trio, could be valuable, please let us know. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so that is the model that Fairventures Worldwide uses. We work with 3 sister organizations that came out of us, focused on different aspects and different elements of sustainable forestry and building this, what we call the good forest. But I also wanted to just take the chance to just talk to you, because I know many of you are studying forestry and you're getting ready to launch yourself into the work world. And I wanted to talk, just to give you a little bit of my advice that I have experienced over the last many years to maybe kind of shape your path a little bit. So the very first thing that I would tell you is to ask yourself this question of why. You know, many of us get into the subjects that we study because we end up there. It's just where you kind of got dumped and that's the direction your life went. And now you're here and you have this degree. Ask yourself this very, very fundamental question outside of what any of your professors have told you or anybody else has told you. Why are you a forester? Why do you want to focus on climate change? What are you looking at? The reason for that is that you really have to think carefully. Do you want to be working in the government sector? Do you want to be working in the private sector? Do you want to work in the NGO world? What's your focus? You know, we have some foresters that work for us in social forestry that are much more oriented towards a financial gain, which that's what they should be. Our foresters that are working for me in Worldwide are much more community development people. And you really need to ask yourself, where do I belong? Where do I belong? What's my goal? I recommend to everybody in our team, it's pretty old school, but it works. Get a journal, old paper and pen, piece of paper and a bound journal, and sit down and write yourself an analysis of who you are and what you want and what kind of forester you want and what kind of direction you want in your life. And really ask yourself some hard questions, because you won't be able to figure out the direction you need to go until you can see the destination. So I ask all of you to just think about, what is your why? Why is it that you're sitting here in this lecture on a Sunday when you should be out having fun with your friends? What is it that has put you in this chair? And ask yourself some pretty hard questions about why you're here, okay? Then my next thing you might not want to hear, some of you, is you need to get some practical skills. You're coming from an academic background, which is great. You're going to learn a lot of things. I can't use you. I can't use you if you are an academically trained forester. And NGOs that are working directly with farmer groups, we want you, but we want you after you've worked on a forest for 4 or 5 years. I know this is going to sound terrible to you because you want to jump right in and start getting involved. I need people that have really, really practical forestry skills. And that means people that have very practical, very dirty hands that have done the same thing 1,000 times. So you've dug 1,000 holes, you know exactly how deep 20 different commodities like to be planted, you know how to germinate a seed, you know exactly how to mix dolomite, and you've done it 1,000 times. So when a farmer asks you any question, you can answer it. You can rip open a poly bag and not hurt a root structure in your sleep. These are all things that I need you to be able to do. You know how to use a chainsaw, and you've cut down a couple hundred trees. Even the people that have thinks like that's a scary thing to do, get your boots on, go grab a chainsaw and get out into the field. That knowledge, really just taking a year before you think about a career path, go get practical experience. Dig down and really, really learn your craft. And it will make everything that you do for the rest of your career so much richer. So that's, I can't say it enough. Go get some practical dirty hands experience. It's fun. You don't have to stress about your career and changing the world in the future. Give yourself a couple of years to really learn your craft. So after you know what kind of forester you want to be, you spent the last 2 years working in a forestry plantation, then you ask yourself, okay, now I'm ready to maybe start looking at an NGO, or I'm ready to start looking at a social enterprise that is going to be focused on my why. Be very careful about who you apply to. Investigate us. Dig deep. Look for criticism. I get a lot of people that apply for jobs, and I can tell within 2 minutes that the only thing they did was they scanned our webpage for maybe a minute, 5 minutes, and then they've got some little things to say. How do you know that you want to work for me? That's always my question. I may be not a good organization. And there are a lot of organizations that don't necessarily tell you the full truth in when they present themselves. So my challenge to all of you is be very careful about the organizations that you attach yourselves to, because it's no fun to spend 6 months learning the ropes and getting deeply involved in an organization only to find out that that organization is not exactly who you think they are. And the last point on that slide is just, again, repeating a little bit of that, but dig deep into us, investigate who you're working for, and be just careful with the people that you choose to give your passion to, so that you really can, when you know what you want to do, you can be sure that you're going to make the kind of change and contribution to the world that you want to. Be very critical of us. Ask questions. If somebody gives you an answer you don't understand, it's not because you're stupid or that you don't know or that you're ignorant. Ask questions, because a lot of people, especially in climate change mitigation and especially in carbon right now, don't have answers to the things that we say. So be brave and challenge people. All right, so Kristen, I go back over to you. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Megan.
You're welcome.
Yes, it was a very insightful and inspirational content, and it is relieving to know that such efforts like this are being pursued by Fairveture. And I think I'm not the only one who thinks so. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am very sure there is a lot of questions you want to ask to Mrs. Megan. And with that being said, let us jump into the Q&A session, just like in the previous session. Feel free to raise your hand through the Zoom feature, or you can write in the chat box. We are opening 3 slots first for the questions. And if there is still remaining time at the end, we will extend the slots to more questions. Again, I would like to remind everyone, if you want to ask questions to Mrs. Megan, you can raise your hand through the Zoom feature, or you can write your questions in the chat box so I can help read it to Ms. Megan.
I can see in the chat now there's a request for email, which I'll tell you the truth, I don't even open my email anymore. My teams work fully on WhatsApp, and much to the anger of most of my team, I refuse to use my email anymore. So I won't give you my email because I don't even read it. But please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That is the place where you can find out about opportunities, and I can immediately send you to the colleague who can answer your question. I travel so much that I'm offline so much. But please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to connect to you. And then we can go through there. And that's probably the best place to reach out to me. That would be the most, that I'm most liable to answer. And if I don't answer you immediately, please forgive me. But I will connect so that you can stay updated through my feed on LinkedIn.
That would be the most convenient way to stay connected.
Exactly.
Okay. Maybe in the meantime, while we wait for questions to emerge, maybe I would like to know more about you. Since seeing your resume first, I want to ask you more of a glimpse of your why. You started off your education in the arts of language and also communications. Maybe you can share with us how this have correlated to the job field you have now in Fairveture Worldwide. Perhaps from this, you can inspire more people from non-environmental backgrounds to take courage in joining this field.
Sure. So I'm an American, but I moved to Central Europe, post-socialist Central Europe in my very early 20s. So I've been based in the Czech Republic for over 25 years. And that's where I started my career. I started working in democracy development. I was in a post-communist country. So I spent a lot of time in community organization and community level democracy and engagement. And that led me to work for an organization called People in Need. And if you are active in humanitarian aid, you'll run across people in need. If you've never been faced with a humanitarian crisis, you probably have never heard of them. But they're a global leader in the development and the distribution of humanitarian aid. And the second thing that People in Need does is it works on livelihood recovery after a disaster. So that's what I did. That was my second career step. I went from doing community development to applying what I knew in community development to livelihood recovery post-war. And I was in the Middle East for a very long time after the American-led invasion of Iraq. And I focused on how to help communities rebuild after war. And that was my big focus. I was based in Jordan, but covering the south of Iraq. So I spent a long time in the Middle Eastern context, focusing on rebuilding communities after crisis. How do you help people realize where their power is? And that is very, very similar to what I had done in the Czech Republic and what I did in the former Yugoslavia with democracy development. So those two things really built on each other. And then my entrance into Indonesia was an accident completely. I had planned on going to Afghanistan after Iraq. And just by chance, a friend had offered me a very short posting in post-tsunami Aceh, which is the very northern tip of the island of Sumatra, which in 2005 was destroyed by tsunami. And I went to, again, I wasn't, at that time, I wasn't a humanitarian worker that would go in with the first wave of aid. I came in much, much later. So I came 5 years after the tsunami to do livelihood development. And what I quickly learned is that livelihood development without a specific commodity that has a specific off-taker and a designed value chain that already exists is not a livelihood project. You have to work with the private sector. You have to design programs for products that already have a market. You cannot let your passion for, let's empower a women's group to make handcrafts and sell that as a livelihood. That requires such incredible marketing and focus that it's almost not fair to get the hopes of people up. And that's where I learned very quickly that, against my NGO heart, the business world had to be my partner, and I had to listen to them, and I had to design programs that would encourage farmers to plant the type of crops that they could sell already into an existing value chain. And we look for ways to add value, but we don't reinvent the wheel. And that's painful for NGOs to learn, in my opinion. So I worked with patchouli farmers, which our friends from Bangladesh and India will also know, that some of the highest grade patchouli, nilam, minyak nilam, right? Nilam patchouli oil, some of the highest grade patchouli oil in the world. It's an essential oil that's very, very important to cosmetic industry, comes from the province of Aceh. So we focused on that. And that's where I began to work with commodities. And I still made a lot of mistakes, and our teams made a lot of mistakes, and we didn't design things as well as we ought to have. And my next step, I said I would never work for an NGO again. I was going to work for a company. Then I went back to work for an NGO. I worked for the Swiss development agency called Swiss Contact in Jakarta, and we were focused on cocoa. So we had 65,000 cocoa farmers in most of the cocoa growing areas all over Indonesia. And the thing that was really special about the Swiss Contact program is that it was hand in hand with the private sector. So everything that we were teaching our farmers was geared towards producing the kind of cocoa that the market was demanding. So that we were teaching farmers, forget about what the NGOs have told you, maybe forget about what you heard. You need to be able to listen to the off-taker. And you, Mr. Farmer, need to understand how many middlemen there are between you and the production of the processing of cocoa, so that you can understand where the money goes into that chain. And that puts more power into the hands of that farmer, right? So at Swiss Contact, we were working on the cocoa value chain. And that's when I got a call from Fairventures that said, we want to combine cocoa, we want to combine Neelam, we want to look at short and medium, and we want to put the bankable carbon-rich long-term crop into the fields of Kalimantan, which is timber. So that's how I ended up in this position. And all of this work starts because I come from several hundred years of farmers from America. My family is a farming family, and not a successful farming family. We're not a giant farming family that has become very rich. My grandfather was not a very good businessman. He was a good farmer, but I know firsthand the struggle that farmers have to try to be connected to their land, and that they also, they want to be farmers, they want to work the land, they want to have dirty hands, but you have got to be a businessman. A farmer that doesn't have a business brain doesn't have a chance. So that's my personal drive to stay connected to this smallholder family farmers. 50 years ago, this kind of support would have helped my own grandfather tremendously. So he's kind of like my North Star and why I do all of these things and how they're all connected.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Megan, for sharing your personal journey. I think most of us here can resonate well with what you have told us. Thank you so much. So in the meantime, we already have a few questions coming from the chat box from Fran Indra and also from Mahmoud Basir.
Right, so
First-
Kalimantan. Why
Yeah.
Kalimantan? Kalimantan, because the founder of our organization had been a carpenter vocational trainer on Kalimantan for 15 years. And he witnessed the deforestation that was happening here. And he had a personal drive to realize that he wanted to do something to help the indigenous community that's here. The Dayak community, the indigenous people of Kalimantan, are very tied to the forests. And as Kalimantan is deforested, that connection to the forest is lost. So he had, Johannes Schwegler is his name, he's our founder. He had a personal connection to this area. And he began looking at the potential for a program focused on rebuilding the forests. And Kalimantan's just the perfect fit for need. It's not the perfect fit for easy. There are many, many, many places in Indonesia where we would be much, much more successful. Everything on Kalimantan is a challenge. The logistics are a challenge. The political landscape is a challenge. The local community and their long tradition to being forest people and not being farmers is also a challenge. So if I were looking for a place where I could be guaranteed to be more successful, I would not be in Central Kalimantan. But if I look for a place that needs support more than any other that I've seen, I couldn't go anywhere else. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. Carbon sequestration, how accurate TRIO in measuring tree carbon? I'm not even going to attempt to answer that question because my sister organization TRIO has scientists that are focused specifically on that, and I've stepped completely out of looking at those questions. I was there a year and a half ago, but I'm not able to answer them directly. But I urge you, you can reach out on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn to our TRIO colleagues and ask these questions, link into them. And they're very interested in reaching out to people that have experience. And I know that TRIO is looking to build their team in Indonesia now. So please, I ask you to reach out to my colleagues. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. If you don't get in touch with them, you can let me know and I can tap somebody on the shoulder for you.
Okay.
You're welcome to the answer, sir.
Okay, so it looks like we don't have any more questions incoming, but unfortunately, the time is also ending. We are out of time, unfortunately. But of course, as mentioned before, if there are any discussions or any inquiries regarding Fairveture or anything that can be answered by Mrs. Megan King, You can, of course, stay connected with her through LinkedIn, of course, and through all the social medias provided in the website, with the Sisters of Fairveture and also Fairveture Worldwide themselves. Oh, okay. We have one more question coming. We can still use this time to answer this, Miss Megan? Okay, please. In the forest of Kalimantan, one of the forests that is still preserved in Indonesia.
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. There are many national parks that are being preserved. But what's interesting about Kalimantan is this is still an area where logging concessions are very active, and we still have a lot of forest that's being actively logged. So our makeup of Kalimantan is changing all the time. We also, much like Sumatra, we also have had tremendous problems with fire in the past. And we've also, we, as all of Indonesia, the idea of monoculture and large monoculture concessions is a significant challenge to land use. So I would say that Sumatra is a much more challenging environment than Central Kalimantan for the fact of we keep adding additional hectare to the areas of deforestation every year. And we have much more forest that we want to plan for the use for the future than Sumatra does. And because logistics are so challenging on Kalimantan, we're much less interesting to some of the bigger monoculture forces that happen on Sumatra. So I would say it's a much, it's a less crowded landscape of actors on Kalimantan, but the logistical challenges here make it very, very challenging. So I think it compares to Sumatra in many terms, in many areas, but our area, our focus here is different. There's much more land at stake on Borneo, on Kalimantan, than there is right now on Sumatra, but the challenges are great in both areas. I think that answers the question. Are there more? Or is that the last question in the chat?
Okay, I think that is the last one. Again, if there are more questions, you can go to LinkedIn and stay connected. Okay, Mrs. Megan, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I have been contacted by the organizer telling that the time has run out. And again, thank you so much, Mrs. Megan, because we must end this session soon. And also, ladies and gentlemen who has been attending this session, let me recite the key takeaway message that I think really resonates with what we need to hear, especially for us as the younger generation. When working in the development sector, keep the government close to you, keep the value chain in mind. The forest community holds a high role in sustaining the development done. That is why we also must try hard in pursuing what is needed and what is the right for these communities. Know your why, get dirty, dig deep when learning new positions, and also be critical. Lastly, think globally, act locally. Okay, Mrs. Megan, on behalf of the organizer and everyone attending, we would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation as presented in the screen. We thank you for your time and effort in helping the success of this event. Again, it is an honor for us to have you here. May we meet in the future, and also may you be blessed with good health abundantly. Thank you, Ms. Megan. See you soon again. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as this session ends, I will also have to part from my role as the moderator. I would like to thank the speakers, the organizers, and the lecturers, and everyone who took part in making this seminar a success. For any misdoings, I apologize, and I hope to see all of you soon in the near future. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I give the floor back to the Master of Ceremony.
All right, thank you so much, our moderators. Before that, we will take a pictures to the participant. Please turn on your camera because we will take a picture with our great speakers. Please turn on your camera. I will wait about 3 minutes to you for your on camera. All right, it's look like it's done. To the operator or PDD, please take a picture and the countdown is on me. Okay, please. 1, 2, 3. The next slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before that, we will give a special souvenir for our moderator because it has guided us in the smooth running of this event. This is certificates of appreciation for the moderator who has fulfilled his duty fully today. Okay, thank you, Miss Kirsten Valerie. Hopefully, we can work together again the next event. Everyone, please say thanks to our moderator in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone to say thanks to our moderator. Okay, for the next agenda is the most eagerly awaited, the announcement of the winners in the IEST 2022 competitions. Okay, let's start from the first category. Namely, is the SI category. Okay, the third place goes to Okay, congratulations to the third place. Congratulations, Ibrahim and Karima Indriwati, to the winner, the third place in the category SI. Okay, let's move on to the second place goes to Congratulations, Muhammad Wahidin Nasrullah and Agni Priska Gerdana Yupal for the second winner in the category SI. Okay, let's move on to the next winner. Is the first place goes to Congratulations to Sahaya Aulia Zahra, Iqbal Ramdhani, and Nabila Nurseptiani. Okay, the next category is photography. The favorite winner category goes to Hisham Zulfikar for the winner. For the winner is the photography category in the favorite winner. Congratulations, Hisham Zulfikar. Okay, the next is the third place goes to congratulations to Muhammad Yordi Septian, to the winner, the third place category photography. Okay, the next is the second place goes to congratulations to Lisma Sari for the second place, namely the photography category. Okay, the next is the first place goes to congratulations to Eko Ardianto to the first place, namely photography category. Okay, the last category is infographic category. The favorite winner category goes to congratulations to Dewi Azizato for the favorite winner category. The next is the third place, namely the infographics category goes to Siti Zulaika Febrianti as the third place for the infographics category. For the next is the second place goes to Muhammad Adillah Ulil Abal for the second winner in the infographics category. For the last one, the winner, the first, namely the infographics category goes to congratulations for Rahmalia Ayunin for the first place in the namely infographics category. Congratulations to the winners and those who weren't lucky. It's not a failure, but as our motivation if we can do better as soon as possible. Okay, thank you and congratulations for the all winners. Everyone, please say congratulations in the chat box to do all the winners and give your reactions. Okay, congratulations for the all winner. Okay, it doesn't feel like we are the end of the events. Thank you for the participants and those who have been involved in this event. Hopefully with this event, we can gain more new knowledge, insightful, and the new experiences. And for your information, this IEST is held every year. So guys, don't forget to participate in this event next year, okay? I am Meisha as a Master of Ceremony. See you next year, guys. Thank you so much.